When a mother bear shed tears, it guided the man to her ailing cub. However, the bear's subsequent actions left everyone truly astonished. Smith really loved nature. When he was a kid, he enjoyed hiking and watching animals at the zoo near his house. He even studied to become a vet, so he could help animals all the time. It was amazing because he could treat pets and even some big animals. He got to work with the same animals he saw at the zoo as a child. It felt like coming full circle. But being a vet was sometimes very hard. He would get attached to the animals he treated, especially if he'd known them since they were young. Sadly, he couldn't save every animal, no matter how hard he tried. He knew he should keep his feelings in check, but he couldn't help caring deeply. Whenever an animal didn't make it, it broke his heart. But then he'd see the next patient, and once again he'd care for them, just like he always did for all the animals he treated. Still, after a few years of working as a vet, he realized that he needed somewhere he could go and just rest and recuperate. He enjoyed going out in the city and having fun with his friends, but it wasn't the same as really resting and recharging. When he had a tough time, for that, he needed to get back to the way that he had relaxed as a kid, by getting out in nature. There were a few hikes that he could take close to the city, but none were long enough to really relax. His practice was doing well, and he decided that he would reward himself with a tiny cabin in the woods. It didn't have a lot of land connected to it, but it bordered a national park, and that meant that there was plenty of land for him to go for long hikes. And because it was a national park, no one was ever going to build on the land. He would always have his little sanctuary to get out. He could just sit on his porch and look at the birds and the eagles in the sky, or even watch some deer and other animals passing by his home. It was just what he needed. You couldn't hear any cars or other city noises. All he heard were animals and the sounds of nature. He had a particularly long week when he decided to head to the woods. He had just put his weekend bag down in the cabin, pulled off his work gear, and got on hiking boots. Then he grabbed an apple and headed for a walk. As he chewed, he breathed in the fresh air and listened to the sounds of the river in the distance. His heart felt like it had been beating too fast for days, but now it all slowed down and he could start to think clearly again. He had walked for a while when he spotted a bear in his path. It was some way away, and he knew that he needed to keep his distance. But the bear had other ideas. She came towards him, walking slowly in reverse as to keep an eye on her. Smith went back in the direction that he came. He knew better than to try and run. But still the bear just kept coming. Then another movement caught Smith's eye. Next to the bear, a cub came out of the woods. This made the situation a whole lot more dangerous. A mommy bear can be a lot more aggressive than a single bear. He needed to be careful with the bear still coming forward. Smith knew that retreat wasn't working. He had to try a different approach. Putting his arms up in the air, he made himself big. Smith made as much noise as possible, stamping his feet and shouting. Hopefully, the brown bear would stop coming towards him, but something really strange happened. She didn't act like he would have expected at all. He had some experience caring for the bears at the zoo, and he could see that there was something else wrong. The bear didn't retreat as he would expect her to, and she didn't have any signs of the aggressive behavior he would expect her to have if she was giving chase. It was one of the strangest animal encounters he had ever had. She sat down in the forest. Her baby was climbing all over her, but it almost looked like the bear mother was crying. She looked completely defeated. It touched Smith's heart. He knew that he was taking a big chance, but he got closer to the bear. Was she injured? It looked like she was desperate, but he had never seen any of the behavior she was showing. Despite his experience, Smith was in the dark, and he could only go on his instincts and try to figure out what the bear needed. As he was getting closer, the bear got up, but she didn't come towards him. She started walking towards the river, but she looked behind her as if she was asking him to follow. Smith was so curious about her strange actions that he just had to follow. Besides, it did look like she was asking for help, and since helping animals was what he dedicated his entire life to, there was no way that he wouldn't help her if he could. The bear didn't even seem to notice when her baby started running around Smith and trying to become friends. She was completely focused on her destination. She led him to the river. There, almost in the middle of the river, was a bunch of fishing nets. The bear went up to it. At first, Smith didn't understand why she was so interested in the nets, but then it started moving. Another baby bear was completely tangled up inside. Every time the water flowed over the net, the baby was submerged. It looked like the bear had tried to pull the nets apart, but with it being such a big tangled mess, she couldn't free her cub. She needed the help of a human to save her baby, and that was what she was so desperately trying to communicate to Smith. There wasn't a lot of time left. The little bear already wasn't very responsive. He needed to get the cub free. He hadn't brought anything with him at all, definitely no knife to cut the bear cub loose, and there was no time to run back home and get one. By the time he got back, it would be too late to save the little bear. He had to make another plan. Running down the riverbank, he checked out all of the rocks and found one with a sharp and jagged edge. Then he quickly swam to where the little bear was in the water. He cut through the ropes of the fishing nets. It took a while and left his hands bleeding and sore, but he couldn't stop. Finally, there was enough space to get the cub out of the tangled mess. Smith pulled him out and swam him to the riverbank, the anxious mother close behind. The baby wasn't moving, but Smith was determined. He started doing compressions and the baby started to breathe. Exhausted, Smith sat to one side. The little bear got up on shaky legs and ran to his mother and sibling. The mom hugged him close, and after a while, when she had made sure that he was completely fine, she let him play with his sibling. Then the little family went back into the forest. After Smith felt better, he walked back home. He couldn't believe what had just happened. He thought he might never see that bear family again, but he was really happy about it. He had an exciting story to tell his friends. When he got home, he took a warm shower. Carrying the little bear cub had been hard, and his muscles hurt, but he could finally rest. The next morning, he sat on his porch with a cup of coffee. He had been on an adventurous hike the day before, so he was happy just to relax. But something amazing happened. He was surprised when he saw the bear and her cubs. They came to visit him. For a long time, the mother bear and the cub he had saved would visit whenever he was at his cabin in the woods. What do you think of this story? Let us know in the comments section. Thank you.